You really should have just started. Ooh. Well, guys, it's Halloween. Welcome along. We were going to be really scary, freak everyone out by being in time, and we thought, hell no, that's just going to be far too unpredictable.
I know that's my fault tonight, everybody. But I think it's usually my fault, to be honest. No, it's not always my fault, actually.
No, not always. I think we'll take equal blame on that.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to another Blether with, and thank you all for joining us. It's Halloween. Hopefully, it's been a good excuse for you not to go wandering the streets with your child dressed up, and you get a chance to sit down, put your feet up, pour a dram, and listen to us blether instead. Good evening, Tim. Good evening, Frank. Good evening, Dutch Jura. Thank you for joining us. Let us know what's in the glass. As always, you can see I have my Halloween decorations to the max by stealing Killian's goodie bag that he got from his babysitter. I haven't stolen any sweets. I've just stolen the bag and the stickers. So that's what I've got as decorations tonight, which is like 100% more than what you've got, Kat.
I know, I've messed up this year. Halloween is like my Christmas. Oh, you got tangerine. I love Halloween, but I have not even got a carved neep or a pumpkin. I didn't even put any face paint on. Believe it or not, this is actually what I look like on a normal basis. I haven't got anything Halloween related. I mean, oh wait, I've got something.
Ooh. This is interesting.
So I'd like to say that this is Halloween based, but this is just on my bookcase.
This is I thought this was going to be like a stuffed rat or something.
I mean, I do have a stuffed mole, but I think I've already shown you my mole, so I'll put that.
Yeah.
I'll put that up there.
Tim Powell's is on the Jura 16 perspective in a homage to the Jura Ghosts.
Yeah.
Jura Ghosts, that was one of the ones I picked up on in one of the stories I was going to speak about tonight. And how this the distillery is still open because Ghosts visited the owner at a time who was going to close it and said, no, you're not closing anything. So they kept the distillery open, which is quite cool.
Yeah. He put a ban on distillation, didn't he? The layered ban distillation on Island, and some old woman started haunting him at night, which I absolutely love.
Probably his wife.
Oh, maybe. But the legend is that they have to put out a bottle of, I can't remember what age statement of Jura it was, whatever it was.
I think it was 16. I think it was a 16-year-old.
Ah, okay. So yeah, they have to put this out every Halloween to put it out just to make sure that the ghost knows that they're still distilling, which
there's a cave, a secret cave or something that they go to and put the the original legend is that they put a whiskey out and the whiskey is still there in the secret cave. Going back to, I think it was 1700s, late 1700s, I think that was. So you imagine if you found that whiskey. I think it would probably be a little bit beyond drinking, but
imagine though if you did drink it though and you were cursed and the old lady was after you after that. You wouldn't want to bring that curse down on you, would you? I think I'd probably just leave it there.
You would not. But yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about Jura while you Tim brought it up. The other ghost, you know about the other ghost in Jura? More recently, in 2010, they had ghost hunters out.
Oh no! Hang on, I've got my stories confused. I thought that was maybe the one they had like a cat.
Yeah, they put a camera on the cat.
Yeah. That's right.
And they caught something, and then they took over. Joan Charles, who was a famous ghost hunter, who came over, and they believed it was. I did have her name here. Elizabeth Quinn, is the former distillery manager. Said that there was an Elizabeth who lived nearby, who they reckon this ghost is. So. She's classed as an authoritative spirit rather than a ghost. So, so that's pretty cool. Something quite as recent as that, because normally we think of ghost stories, we think of something that's ancient and long, long ago. But quite a few of the ones that I kind of dug up are fairly recent stories, which are quite cool.
I nearly got a first-hand account of a story today from the distillery manager. He used to be the assistant manager at Ardmore. And somebody said to me, oh,
in that case, I'm going to pour my first whiskey.
Oh, awesome. Is that
21-year-old Gordon MacPhail.
That's very exciting. That sherry cask one.
It is. It's a fully matured and refill sherry cask.
Wow. Very nice. Well, the manager, so my manager had gone out to speak to the distillery manager, and she came back and said, oh, sorry, I've been a minute. Russ was telling me a ghost story. I was like, hold the phone. I need it on that, thinking about tonight. And then I got caught up doing other things, went to go and find him, and he was over working at Ardmore for the rest of the day. So I never fully got the ghost story, but it's a more recent ghost story. It involves him and something to do with his phone. I don't know. I'll find it out for next week. But I know Ardmore does have a ghost. So there's allegedly one of the first, remember the first distillation team is spotted wandering around the yard sometimes, because you've seen the painting of him, but never actually the ghost. So yeah,
I've never seen the ghost. No, I've seen who the ghost is in a painting.
Yes. So the story goes that McPherson's driver had turned up at Ardmore and shouted over to a guy who was crossing the yard with a shield, like a spade. I was like, what's the real word for a shield? On his shoulder. And the driver had shouted and says, oh, I've got a load of malt for you. You know, you're going to sort me out. And the guy just kind of walked off. So he'd gone into the office and said, well, your boy outside's not much use, you know, sort him out. And whoever's in the office said, well, there isn't anyone outside. It's just me. Like, it's too early for anybody else to be here. So, yeah, apparently it was the malt man still doing his rounds at Ardmore Distillery 100 years later.
That's
Keen bean.
Yeah. And in fact, they've got a picture of him as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah, because I think they described this. I think the driver described what he looked like. And obviously, you know, it sounded like he was in really old-fashioned clothes. So they took him into the archive room, which obviously you've been in. And he says, that's the guy there. And there's quite a few portraits in there. So the fact they picked out one in particular, I said, well, that's him. So yeah, it's quite a cool story. But I've never seen him.
You're not there often enough. That's a problem.
No, or maybe, I don't know, I think ghosts are more like, well, I say ghosts are more nighttime kind of, but we don't know that for sure, do we? A lot of ghost sightings seem to be in the daytime.
I don't know why they would be nighttime only. It's like they're not ghosts of owls or bats. They're nocturnal ghosts.
That's just reminding me of something I read today, and it's not really related, but apparently two neighbours who on either side of the road in England somewhere have been like out hooting at owls every night for like a year and realised finally that they'd just been hooting at each other for a year. There was no owl there. They were just out every night hooting at each other. Anyway, that's not related to what we're here for at all. How's the Ardmore?
Not at all. Do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of, do you know when you'll probably have had this both as a kid and a parent, when you've got your own homemade first aid boxes, like not one you buy from a chemist, but when it's just like a plastic tub with a couple of plasters and Savlon, the orange kind of Savlon. That's what this smell reminds me of.
Do you know, that reminds me of one of the best tasting notes I've heard recently. So I was with somebody in the grill, not last weekend, the weekend before. Yeah. And he's just kind of getting into whiskey and stuff. So I was like, right, let's get Glen Scotia out. So we got Victoriana and we got another one. I can't remember what it was. It was like, was it an age statement one? Can't remember. And so like he's quite new to whiskey, but he's got quite a good nose. So he nosed and tried the first one, and he nosed and tries the second one. And he's like, this one's like going to hospital. This one's like going to the mental hospital. I was like, I love that.
Ian would love that.
It's like that sort of elastoplast kind of like funky kind of weird note in there. And then, you just ramp up and it's like going to mental hospital. So, yeah, that'll be one to tell Ian McAllister when we next get him on.
Yeah, that's fun. That's cool. Because Glen Scotia has its own ghost as well, doesn't it? Duncan I'm going to have to look. Duncan McCallum, a former distillery
Yeah,
manager
that's right.
or
Because he
owner.
committed suicide. He was the owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd made some dodgy
After a
business
business deal
decisions.
fell through and went sour, he jumped into Campbellton Loch and is
Yeah,
known to haunt the distillery ever since. I mean, he might be at peace now because it's a pretty successful distillery. It's kind of got over that turbulent time, and
that's true.
I wonder if
Although
he ends
he,
up.
that'd be interesting to ask. It'd be cool to actually just ask a few different people at distilleries. Like, I'd love to go around distilleries and just get ghost stories because it would be the members of staff, like the ones that are doing night shifts,
Yeah,
or the ones that are so used to the place they're not actively looking for anything. Like, there would be.
there was one that I came across when I was looking, and it was, I'm sure it was Cardew. And it's the visitor centre staff who always hear it, and it's just footsteps walking around. They hear it as if somebody's walking in the bottom of the mash tun. It's like feet on metal, like clunking around. And there was another one where a visitor host actually got thrown across the floor by some kind of pesky poltergeist as well. Mm-hmm.
Gosh. Do you know, like, I'm not surprised that distilleries do have ghost stories because, like, they've been, a lot of them have been there for like 200 odd years. Like,
Yeah,
and a lot of them are built in places that are so far out the beaten track and stuff. Like, it's not a surprise that there's the odd ghosty story.
yeah. And a lot of the workers will have been sampling something or other.
Yeah, that's true.
Well. I mean, I'm sure they're all genuine stories, of course.
They've maybe grown arms and legs over the years.
There's a couple of guys just on the chat who are looking forward to the Glasgow Whisky Festival. I'm not jealous one little bit that you guys are there or getting to go there. Tim Hoekstra has poured a dram of Campbelltown Loch bottle kill for this weekend. Getting rid of the nearly empty bottles, ready in time for the new bottles to be opened this weekend.
I like
I
that.
hope. That's a good way to go. Dutch Jura's on theme, drinking Kubokken. Kubokken's another one we can swing round to.
Yeah.
I
I like that
bit.
people have matched their drams to the occasion. That's really cool. Well
That's
done,
cool.
everyone.
It's dedication.
That is the Bletherin. The Bletherin have answered. I like it. I couldn't really find anything Halloween related. I was going to go for the Gauldrons, but I think I did that last Halloween. But I didn't. I went for this one. Seems quite Halloween-y. It's like digging and fire. It makes me think of like graves and bonfires. So I thought
Cremations.
Yes, it makes me think of cremation. So I thought, well, do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like the West Coast, and obviously I used to live next to Corryvreckan, and the Corryvreckan, obviously, guys, because you know my life inside out. And I don't have a bottle of Corryvreckan, unfortunately, but the Corryvreckan was said to be where the Cailleach washed out her cloak or her plaid, and the Cailleach is like the bride of winter, or the witch of winter. So she's kind of like my role model in life. And so I thought, so I thought I'd go for that tonight.
We've got a cool story from Dominic who's saying Glenord has got a former stillman who could be seen turning the barley at the old malt floor. I think, yeah, he visits only once. I'm sure he's just like all night he'll spend just turning one patch. I'm sure I did read this as well. And he'll just sit in the one bar of the old malt floors and just turn one. But so he's obviously really frustrated about that one bit of floor. It's not like he goes up and down; he just stays and.
It's just stuck on repeat. Could you imagine that you die and you're just stuck doing the same thing over and over on repeat? That would be
it's not far off just being alive, is it?
It's like describing my life, just doing the same over and over. That is mad. Well, yeah. I mean, it's such a tough job, though. I hope he didn't actually die while turning the floor, like had a heart attack or something and just got stuck doing it forevermore. That'd be horrific.
Dominic's he's been Googling some of the same articles as I was reading, because he's coming up the stories in probably about the same order as I've got them jotted down here as well. Although the Glen Murray one that he's just picked up on, that was something that was new to me. I didn't hear about that one, and it was just popped up. That Glen Murray was built on a former gallows site, so they've had quite a few. It's one of these. It's not like a consistent or repetitive haunting. There's just lots of different kind of things happen, like lights flicker and bottle smash and things like that. But they did discover 7 skulls under the site, and they put them on display for a wee bit before burying them properly in a cemetery or a graveyard.
I did not know that.
So that's quite cool. I don't know. I'm not sure. Saving looking back, Dominic, do you have to hand when it was? Because I think it was fairly recently they discovered the skulls.
That's big. So discovered in like the same grave, or just discovered on the site? Because that would be even more interesting to find out if they're all buried
on
together.
The site. I think, like I say, it was a former hangman's gallows.
Oh, okay.
So there would have been lots of people, and I suppose perhaps, I don't know if they did beheading in Scotland, or if that was more of a European.
Yeah, I think it's quite European, isn't it? Off with your head. Yeah. I don't know if Scottish people would go to that. We just don't think we'd exert that much energy just to kill somebody. Like, nah, we'll just hang them. We're fine.
Yeah. Save cleaning up the mess.
Yeah, no, we're no bother with that. That's really interesting. I didn't know that one. I'm gonna have to look into that one. I'm gonna write some of these down because it is kind of interesting. And I do feel like there's a book in there somewhere. I said it here first, everyone. So anybody's writing a book about it, it's me. All right.
I started reading that ebook. I downloaded one, and it was Ghosts, Whisky, and Spirit, I think. And I was quite reading, and I thought this is quite different to like a factual. And then it wasn't quite a factual ghost book. It was a Sherlock Holmes story that was just happened to have whiskey in the title, and it was a ghost story. And I realized I was reading a fictional novel. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to stop. But it was quite encapsulated. I got a little bit into it, and then I started flicking through. I was like, right, where's the actual ghost stories? And then realized it was a novel rather than a story about whiskey ghosts. So.
Well, this is my bedside reading material just now, all about the Scottish witch hunts. So I do love my
love a good witch hunt.
Well, no, not a witch hunt. I'm very against that, actually. I'm quite outspoken in how much I'm against a good witch hunt. But yeah, it's interesting to see, like, the numbers. So, like, it was something like 80,000. I wrote it down because I couldn't believe how many it was across Europe. Like, how many women were killed with witch hunts? Got a bit of paper here. It was a mental amount of. I don't know where my bit of paper is anyway.
There was a lot, yeah. I've actually read a similar book. 80,000.
80,000 people were executed across Europe as witches, and 80% of those were women. And 4,000 were executed in Scotland. 45 women in Aberdeen at the toll booth, all executed as witches. Yeah,
as witches. I mean, I would expect the percentage of witches to be more female than male, because isn't a male witch called a warlock?
I don't know if they defined it as that back then. I don't know when those terms came. Because it was witchcraft, wasn't it? It was I guess, was what they were executing you for. But I don't know if they called men warlocks back then or not. Because for a while they were just like doctors, weren't they? Like, you just went down to see the the wise women. I suppose, yeah, who knew the herbs and things. And then they just became witches after that.
Yeah. Can't be having people doing good without like charging for it.
No, you can't have a woman being intelligent and making money from it. God help. Kill them all.
When they all tested whether they're made of wood. I love that from Frank. That's what they did, wasn't it? They put them on they threw them in a river, and if they floated, they were made of wood, so they burned them as witches. And if they sank, they were innocent, but they sank to the bottom of the river and died anyway. So.
Yep, turns out she was fine, but she's dead now. So
at least she'll die knowing she was innocent.
I know. And then they would look for the witch's mark as well. So they'd like strip them in some sort of kangaroo court, and any sort of blemish or freckle or birthmark or anything, they would say it was the sign of the devil and it was the witch's mark, and they would, execute them for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sucks, doesn't it?
Never be good at something. You might be called a witch.
Well, it's the bird, it's a chance I take all the time in my life.
What else have we got on the old witchy woo? So, well, you're talking about Conor Brecon, but the Bowmore headless horseman is probably one of the more famous. Where a distiller went home one day and found that his door was open, and fleeing from his door was on this horse, a headless horseman with a trench coat, and he'd left behind a bottle of Bowmore on the guy's house. Doused the fire, so he thought he'd maybe the cold of being a spectre had quelled the fire, and took a dram out of this bottle, and so the occupant of the house was so terrified that he threw the Bowmore away because he didn't want the ghost coming back. Then it turns out that, so he told the story to friends and family and told the distilleries, so it grew arms and legs. But it turns out it was his a family member. I think it was a brother or a brother-in-law.
It was a brother, yeah.
Brother, yeah. He popped around and just left. He was going to stay, but the wind had caught up. So when he opened the door, he was passing, noticed that the door had blown open in the wind and blown out the fire. And he thought, I was going to give you a bottle, but I didn't want to stay because you weren't here. So I took a dram to keep me warm for the ride home. And because it was so wet, he hunched himself into his trench coat and away on a horse. So it's
funny though that that's because that seems like a quite normal, plausible story. But I love that the other guy, his first thought was, "Oh my God, headless horseman!" He's like,
but I don't believe he threw away the bottle.
Well, no, because apparently it's bad luck now to offer somebody a dram from like an already open bottle, and once the cork's off, you're meant to throw the cork away because you want to draw down the bad spirits. But when I lived up in the Highlands, up in Sutherland, that was like standard. So if you went into somebody's house for a dram, when the bottle was opened, you threw the cork away because like it's sign of hospitality of like, I've opened a bottle for you, and the cork's not going back on. So you threw it in the back of the fire, and that's you in for it. So I don't know whether that's off the back of this kind of notion that it's bad luck to cork an open bottle, like once you've invited somebody in, like, obviously it's like a sign of hospitality. I don't know if it comes from like a bad luck thing or whether it's just, I don't know, like a sort of tradition maybe. Yeah. But yeah, that's always what happened up north. Once the cork was off, it was in the back of the fire. And you were stuck there.
I don't have enough friends to throw away a cork. I'd end up just sitting drinking it myself. I don't even have a fire to throw the cork into either.
You just lob it across the room, take Tony's eye out.
I remember me and my friend were up at Inverness. We're staying at the campsite. We got back to the house after a heavy session. We had got a bottle of Talisker, and we thought, well, there's like a communal kind of area. There was only us. It was about 2:00 in the morning, and we threw the cork away. And we said, "Yeah, we'll manage to finish this." So I think we had about half a dram each, and we're like. Then we spent about another half an hour looking for the cork back in the bottle in the pitch black, like scrambling around. The guys, if anyone was watching us, they must have thought we were bloody headless horsemen looking for the horses or something.
That's not so rock and roll, is it? Looking for the cork.
No, it's definitely not rock and roll at all. I was trying to think if we ever found a cork or if we just, I think we just put a glass on it to cover it. So who have we got? Major Nut is on. Good evening. Good spooky evening to you as well.
Happy Halloween.
Who else have we got? And Dominic has moved on to his dram, the second dram of the night. He's on a Lowland blended malt. Finished in Oloroso Hoggy. A lot of cask interaction, serious sherry. I think I noticed that he was drinking a Cadenhead's tasting set. So he's going to have a few different drams. Talking of different drams, I am empty, so I'm going to pour a second one. And I think we're going to go back to, I think it was Tim who was on the, was it Tim Hoekstra? Was on the Kubochen?
Yes.
Tim
Well,
Powell.
before you go into Cabochen, you need the other Bowmore story. So there's 2 ghost stories for Bowmore. Because there's the Frank Quietly release and one of them was the No Corners to Hide. So that's the church.
Yes.
So obviously they built the church circular. If you've ever been out to Isla at Bowmore, you would have seen a circular church. And they built it that way so that the devil couldn't hide in the corners of the church. But apparently during one service, he appeared in the church. And of course, he had nowhere to hide. So all the villagers saw him and started chasing him out of the church. They chased him into Bowmore Distillery and closed him into the warehouse. But when they went to go and open up the doors, he was gone. So they reckon that he climbed into a barrel of Bowmore and was transported across to the mainland. And of course, that's where all the depravity has happened in the mainland from ever since then, since they chased the devil off of Bowmore.
Bloody Eliab sending him off, chasing him out.
I love that.
Somebody as cunning and clever as the devil would find a way around hiding in a corner, or not being able to hide in a corner.
I know. I like the idea that he's just stepped out of the walls in the church, like, oh shite, there's nowhere to hide. What am I going to do now? But they got this really. The graphic art that they did for it's really, really cool for the sort of it's not called the Legends series. I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, they've done 3 different releases from different sort of.
Is that the Devil's Cask? There was 3.
Yeah, there's the one, the no Corners to Hide, and there was the one about. Oh, I can't remember. That's terrible.
There was 3 a triple release, and the last one came out just as we opened the shop. It was called the Devil's Cask, and the first. And I remember the story because the first release and the second release were sitting at around 80 to 90, maybe £95. But the third release came out at 190 or 180, and it was a big kickback from the public about it. And basically, the reason was that Bowmore were like, well, we've seen what you guys are willing to pay for number 1 and number 2, and we still reckon number 3 is a bargain because the secondary market was churning it out at like £300-400 for 1 and 2. So
yeah,
so like, well, if anyone's going to profit from it, why don't we get a wee slice of that as well? Because we're making the damn stuff.
Well, that's true. Well,
it's I think it's got a big sway on a lot of kind of current retail prices. There's a little bit of it as well. That's what people are willing to pay. So why aren't we charging it?
I think as well, if it's just like a set of 3, it's quite achievable to collect that. When there's bigger sets, it becomes really difficult to do that. But a set of 3, like, I could probably get those 3, and you think about the value of the 3 together. But the collaboration with Frank Quietly was this like graphic artist, does like sort of really cool comic book stuff. And one was the No Corners to Hide.
Graphic novels, I think you'll find them called.
Graphic novels. What did I say? Graphic art. Like that makes it sound
books. I think you said comic books.
Graphic comic books. I don't know. I should know this. My eldest son's really into it. But yeah, the other one was like to do like a changeling child. So, like those fairies come and steal your baby and put a changeling in place. And then another one was to do like a sort of Pictish queen or something, I think. But all the artwork's really, really cool. I was trying to find it on their website, but it keeps asking me to put my age in, and I can't be bothered with that. I've got to scroll down for such a long way.
That's the one thing I've realised we're getting older is those bloody ones where you can't just type it in, you have to scroll. It's like, for God's sake. 3 hours later, you find your date of birth.
Once you've gone back in time.
So yeah, I have just poured the Kubochen. So this is creation number 5, which is in Colombian oak, the Andean cask.
I love that one. I've got that one.
It's phenomenal. I really love just how experimental, how much fun these guys are having. I love the bottle as well. It's just so awesome to hold. You know how you get that tactile. See, when I seen this coming out, I didn't like the look of it. I thought it looked a bit
too quirky.
Yeah, it looked like it was trying to be a gin bottle or something. It just looked, I don't know. But in the hand, it feels really cool. But I really like the old bottles that had the actual. They were quite rounded, quite plain, probably about this kind of shape. And it just had the embossed image, the kind of see-through image of a ghost head of a dog. But they changed it because one of the reasons they changed it was people were looking at it because the ghost was made out of smoke. They instantly thought it was going to be a very smoky whiskey. It's going to be like a peat bomb.
Okay.
But Kubokan is not. It's not too dissimilar to an Ardmore kind of level of smokiness, even slightly less than that. But that's why they changed it. And these curls are the wisps of smoke are represented. That's what that's all curvy for. That's the smoke rising. And that's what it's meant to represent. So Kubokan, for those who don't know, you probably do. You guys are whiskey geeks as well. It's probably the most famous whiskey ghost story, perhaps. Kubokan means ghost dog, and the Kubokan was this monstrous dog that prowled the highlands round about the Tomatin distillery. And one night, after a couple of drams, one of the distillery workers was making his way home in the dark and was confronted by this hellhound. But instead of being scared, he kind of felt an overwhelming desire to reach out and stroke the dog. But as soon as he touched it, poof, up in it disappeared in a wisp of smoke. So that's inspired a whole range of whiskies. One guy, well, it's not just one guy's encounter. That's the distillery connection, I guess. But the Kubokan itself is quite famous. And
That's very cool.
yeah,
I mean, you would be the person that would go and pet the hell dog also.
100%. 100%.
It's got 3 heads. I'll pat all 3.
It's like 3 dogs in one. This is so cool.
So there's Scottish. Do you know the sort of the myth, the legend about the Coo Sith as well? So the fairy dog, because it reminds me of that as well. So there's meant to be like the sort of Highlands and the Glens are meant to be haunted by the Coo Sith, which is the fairy hound. And it's meant to be like a massive dog, like the size of a young bull. And it's got like a green tinge to its fur, or its hair. So like, it blends in to like the sort of the landscape. But it's meant to be the messenger between the world of the fairy and the world of the living, the humans. And apparently if you hear it howling when you're out in an evening, if you haven't hidden and got somewhere safe by its third bark, so it'll howl and it'll bark 3 times. If you haven't hidden by the third bark, it will take you to the fairy world. So it's kind of cool that that the Kubokan's kind of like a similar story. It's almost like a sort of take on the sort of Scottish myth of the Coo Sith.
Yeah, I guess these stories will have travelled and stuck in certain places, and people will remember. And as we probably all do with good jokes or good stories, we tell it in the first person. To tell a good story always sounds better when it's happened to you or something. And I think that's where a lot of the kind of similarities come from, is traveling minstrels or these kind of people would go and tell their stories, and somebody picks up on it and then says, oh, well, this happened to me.
Well, that's where most of your Halloween traditions have come from. It was originally Scottish and Irish traditions that are stories that just evolved into what we have as Halloween now. So, like trick-or-treating comes from guising, which was literally the shortened version of disguising, because you would disguise your children as evil spirits so that when the real spirits were set free on Samhain or Halloween night or All Hallows night, our children would be safe because they'd be disguised and looking the same as all the other demons, so demons couldn't steal your kids.
Is that why we dress them up?
Yeah. So Americans call it trick-or-treating, but the original Scots word is called guising.
Yeah, weirdos.
They are weirdos. So that comes from disguising.
No offense to anyone from America.
Yeah, no offense, everyone. Love you. So like on Halloween,
we will reserve judgment. Yeah.
I mean, like, we had neeps, and then Americans were like, pumpkins, these are so much easier to carve. I totally get that. But it's not
It
real.
is, but they're always looking for an easy way out, aren't they?
They are. So when the Scots emigrated to America, a lot of these traditions went with them and kind of evolved into more of the holiday that we have now. But yeah, on Halloween, or Samhain, which is the proper name for it, the veil between the two worlds is at its thinnest. So the spirits can travel between the two worlds, which is why you should always set a place at your table for anybody that's parted, because then they can sit with you on Halloween night. But obviously, for all the good spirits that came through, all the evil spirits would come through. So back in the day, parents would protect their children by dressing them up like evil spirits with a lantern, which was made out of a neep because the light keeps the spirits away. And then they would send them out to ask for a blessing, which nowadays is sweeties, but back in the day would have been like some sort of lucky talisman to keep them safe from the evil spirits. So all the things you do today were originally what we did to protect ourselves on Samhain.
Cool.
It is very
just yeah. No, that's cool. I just thought it was, I couldn't be asked giving you sweets, so go and get it from the neighbours.
I mean, that's pretty much what it's evolved to now. But originally,
And then as soon as the kids are out, you close the curtains and turn off lights so nobody comes to your house.
well, your children are going to be stolen by demons. That's all I'm going to say. But imagine, like, that's what people just genuinely believed. Like, they had to do this to protect themselves from having their children stolen away. So yeah, and I would just kind of make
like a permanent little Chucky with his hair, so he'll never get kidnapped.
Now I'm sure having a little redhead around is like a sign of luck. I'm sure it must be somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. This is quite funky. So I've got my other laptop here, and I'm just kind of squinting out for notes and stuff, and I've just clicked. So the Kubokan, apparently the ghost of the Kubokan is the last wolf in Scotland. It's the ghost of the last wolf in Scotland.
That's a really cool story.
That's pretty. I think that's added a new dimension to that story. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's given almost like a personality to the ghost. This is not just any ghost. This is
the last wolf. Yeah, I mean, do you know, it's like it buys into that whole romanticism as well that people quite like about Scotch whiskey and like the Highlands and stuff. But I quite like that. I love that they've gone with that because they don't make Kubokan all the time. I love that they've chosen like this really quirky, like second brand, like the story they've gone with for that. It's very, very cool.
Yeah. It wouldn't have had the same ring to it if it was like the first pug in Scotland, would it?
Ghost pig. The pig trots around the Kubokan.
Pug, still a dog. A pug's still a dog, not a pig.
Well, they're quite pig-like. But yeah, that's very, very cool. I don't know, has anybody else gone down the ghost theme with any of the branding in any other distilleries? Is it just them? We haven't really got anybody else.
Well, Mackie Moors, but I don't think it was a ghost of a dog. Mackie Moor, I think, was the owner's dog called Mackie, I think. Or Mackie Moor's where they get the peat, but they put the owner's dog on the branding. Were you asking about dogs or ghosts?
You got distracted by dogs, but no, ghosts.
Often happens.
When I lived out in the west coast, the part of the water, like between the islands, was called the Grey Dog Pass, and actually the name of the laird who owned most of the island, his dog was called the Grey Dog, and I'm sure that was to do with a ghost dog that could be heard barking on this stretch of water between neighbouring islands, which is quite cool. Ghost dogs do seem to be a thing, which I quite like because like they've got so much personality and stuff. I kind of feel like, you know, like dogs would just attach themselves to somebody or someplace and they would love it so much that they wouldn't want to leave. Yeah. Kind of sad
like Greyfriars Bobby or something like that.
Yeah. Although the romance of Greyfriars Bobby was ruined when I was in Edinburgh and some junkie was like, stop fucking touching the dog. I'm like, all right. Just completely ruined the moment we had a right go at two Chinese girls that were patting its nose. They looked terrified. Welcome to Scotland, everyone. So, completely ruined the
Did he think it was a real dog or something? Was he that out of it?
I don't know what he was thinking, but he was very protective of poor little Greyfriars Bobby.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
yeah, I did a tour with the Greyfriars Bobby, and I went to see his owner's grave and stuff. It's quite. Yeah,
I think.
Have you yourself had any spooky or ghostly encounters, Kat? You must, in all the places you've lived, you're bound to have had one ghost at least.
I haven't so much. So I went to Fyvie Castle on Sunday, to do their ghost tour, which is very, very cool. So it was an evening tour. But when I was a little girl, my great aunt lived on 5E Castle Estate. So she was their bookkeeper. And she lived in one of the big old estate houses. It was called Oldwood House. It was a beautiful house, but the back garden opened out into the forest. So it was quite spooky. But my great aunt was this wonderful lady. She lived on cigarettes and gin and single malt. And she just always wore like tweed and pearls. But she had so many ghost stories of this house, and it terrified me as a child. And the house was freezing. And sometimes she had this old Labrador called Sarah. And I remember one day we heard the door creaking in the house. And Sarah just sat up and just kind of watched something go across the room. And my great aunt was just like, oh, that'll be the ghost again. And you're just like, as a child, you're like, what? So it always kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies. So I was kind of looking forward to going to see 5E on Sunday. So it was a really cool tour. They did a couple of cool things. We did a, oh gosh, what's it called? The board with the Ouija board. So we did that. And like the guide was very, very good. So it was all quite fun. They told us some cool ghost stories. They told us the story of the baby that was buried in the walls. So do you know that story?
Yeah.
So the laird impregnated a maid. And then when she had the baby, he made the builders bury the baby in the walls. So they were saying that, on a still night, you can sometimes hear the baby cry. So it's all quite creepy, but a good fun. So anyway, we're going down the stairs. And we kept quite an open mind because we're thinking, this is just for the tourists, but it's a nice bit of fun. So the person I was with, we were just chatting. And as we're going down the stairs, we heard a baby cry. So we were like, oh, I bet they've put that in the next room. This will be like, something. Because they'd hid the odd thing here and there. So we're like, oh yeah, we'll see what happens in the next room then. Got to the bottom of the stairs, and then the lady's like, okay, well, thank you, everyone. Bye. Thanks for coming. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, bye. We went out, we were driving home, and I was like, wait, where was the room with the baby in it? It's like it wasn't actually part of the tour. Like we just heard this baby crying as we were leaving. So it kind of freaked me out. I was like, that wasn't actually a staged part of the tour.
It maybe was, but that was the mind fuck. That was just how many of them are going to go home thinking about this baby?
Well, it has, because it's been playing in my mind since Sunday. I'm like, I'm going to write them an email and ask them, was there a baby?
It's like one of those movies that just ends without really ending, and it just leaves the rest up to your imagination. They don't explain it. It's like that, where you're just like, oh, wait, was that part? And that's the trick. Is that's what makes it scary, is they know what's happening, but they completely ignore it.
Yeah, so this is annoying me as well, because I want to know. So I think that's probably the only... I mean, I've heard ghost stories, different places I've lived, people have had experiences or like, seen things out on like the hill and stuff. But no, me personally, that's probably the closest I've had to, other than the bloody ghost that keeps turning the fairy lights on in Glengarry. But
considering how old it is, Glengarry's not really got its own little ghost story, does it?
We don't know, so we've never really had anybody.
You have to make one up.
Well, people are going to know now that I've made it up. The only creepy thing I've ever had happen there was these fairy lights. And it was about 5 years ago. It's when we used to do the Christmas fair. And we put fairy lights up everywhere. And every time we came in the morning, some of them would be on, even though we'd turn them off. We're like, it must just be a timer or something we haven't figured out. And we took them all down, put them all in the old malting barns, which at the time we hadn't refurbished. They were just, like they used to be. They were just kind of like a store room. Put them all down. And we're like, we'll sort that out. We'll come back. Whatever. It was like a Sunday or something. We're like, we'll tidy it all up on Monday. Came back in Monday morning, and the lights were kind of not in the same pile that we had. They were kind of spread out a little bit, and they were all turned on. So either one of the production guys was fucking with us, but we weren't 24-hour production then, because we used to have to close up the distillery, which was quite creepy, and lock everything and turn the lights out.
Okay, yeah.
So we'd literally locked the malt barns. You couldn't access it back then. We'd locked the door. And there's like another time when my colleague had gone to turn off the very top floor, which we never used to use at all. It was always just empty. The light was on. So my colleague's like, we'd closed up for the night. And he's like, I better go up and turn that light off. I'm like, yeah, on you go then. I'm not. So he went up and turned the light off. That was fine. We carried on what we were doing. We went to go walk up to our cars. The light was on again at the top of the malt barns, and I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not going up." So that's the only weird encounter. It's not happened again since. So it could just be timers. It could have just been he hadn't pressed the button right on the switch. It could have
been the ghost.
Could have been a ghost.
Could have been old John or Alex Manson coming back just to check in.
I mean,
it could have been one of the soldiers who stayed there during the war coming back to checking in an old buddy.
Yeah, I mean, John Alexander.
You're the literature girl. You should be.
Do you know? I like the idea of it being one of the soldiers because, like, John Alexander Manson were like Aberdeenshire farmers, so they're like tighter than a duke's arse. There's no way they would have been turning on electricity and wasting that for the night. If anything, they'd be going around turning lights off. But
for anyone who doesn't know what tighter than a duke's arse means, I would love to see what the subtitles comes up on that.
I mean,
tighter than a duck's bottom. It's what a duke's arse is.
Yes, they are not big spenders by any means, but yeah, it could have been the soldiers that were stationed. Have you ever been? You've been to Speyburn, haven't you?
Yeah.
Have you seen all the writing that the soldiers have left on the posts? It's Speyburn,
upstairs,
isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I'd imagine that would have been the case at Glengarry too, but it's been painted over. But yeah, who knows who could have been turning lights on in Glengarry. We'll put some cameras up or something one day.
Get a cat called Elvis with a collar.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
You just call yourself Elvis and run around with a collar and a camera.
I think people think I'm weird enough without starting that sort of nonsense up.
That's fun.
So that's what's your ghost story? Have you got one?
I personally don't, but the pub, so I also have a pub in Inverurie, and it's got a ghost. So we think that there's two possible stories. One is that it's Isabella Christie, who was one of the first owners. We traced the pub back, and when we bought it 17 years ago, she was the owner. We've traced it back 157 years then. So what would that, 174, 75 years? And she was the owner back then. So going by what people have seen, that's who we think it is. But the only record of anyone dying in the pub was a male, and his death was registered as unexplained. And this was back in the 1906, 1907. And they were saying that it's very unusual for the time to have a death registered as unexplained or unknown cause. They would normally just put something in. So it could be, I mean, there might be two, but we've had guests who stay in the bed and breakfast saying they've seen ghosts in both those rooms. So we've got 3 rooms upstairs. So the middle one, which I think was the one that you stayed in after our staff night out.
I'm just hearing about this now.
So one of the guys, it was twin room, one of the guys who was staying woke up because the guy next to him was making a noise. Turned around, he was sound asleep, but there was a glow floating above the guy, just kind of hovering above him. And obviously the one who woke up freaked out a little bit and kind of sat up to kind of say something. As soon as he stood up, it floated away. Those same guys heard knocking on the doors, and there was nobody else in there but them. And we've had glasses shattering. We've got a bell that you ding for last orders. It rings on its own sometimes. So there might be an upstairs and downstairs ghost.
Yeah, get like what do you call them? Like a sort of spiritualist medium, or like people that talk to.
We wanted to do that, but it never happened. There was a room round the back. We used to call it the Chinese room, because it had this old Chinese decorated wallpaper. And it was like the smoking room in the back of the pub, so it was kind of hidden away. And that's where the bobbies would go for a fag and a drink when they were on duty. They would go through the back and sit and smoke. So, yeah. We've got, and there's been a lot of people have said stories to us that they've had no connection to each other at all. Like guests in the B&B have all come back and said, yeah, there's something creepy up there.
Wow. So yeah, I'm glad I know that now. I mean, to be fair, I think when I stayed in that room, I'd maybe had one too many. So I don't think much would have woken me up, to be honest. But yeah, that's quite. Well, Meldrum House at Tal, just up the road from Glengarry, it's got a haunted room as well. So you can request to stay in it or request not to stay in it. But I think there's been quite a few encounters in there too.
Dominic was saying, he's on the chat, was saying he stayed at Pataudry House and there was an old nursery which was haunted, and that was apparently the room that he stayed in. He said he didn't see anything, but he was afflicted by seriously bad vibes when he was there.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes it's just like picking up a sort of, like a vibe or like a sort of atmosphere in a room as well that creeps you out. I think some people are more sensitive to it. Children apparently are more sensitive to it as well because, even when you're a kid, you believe magic's real, you believe ghosts are real, so of course you're more in tune to, well, not questioning it, just accepting it for what it is. So, yeah.
Just that innocence, isn't it? And that's what's cool about giving kids whiskey, but in the sense that, so I was at a tasting at one of the local castles, and not too long ago, and the family were there doing tasting, but they had their kids with them. The kids were kind of aged between, I think, 11 and I think the oldest was probably 18, but they were like, say, go and have a smell of that, and they said, is it okay if the kids can smell it? I said, they can smell it, but I can't obviously let them drink it. I said, that's not something I can do, but if it's in your glass, then so. But none of them gave him a drink. But they're like, smell that. And some of the notes the kids were coming out with, it's quite cool. And they were like, well, and I was trying to say to the adults were like, oh, you can't have that, you can't smell that. And they were talking like candy floss and toffee apples and stuff that we would, with you could think that it was tasting notes. And the guys, oh no, well, this is a sherry cask, so you won't be tasting that. No, Mike, what would you be? And I said, well, the great thing about kids is they're not tuned to tell us what they think we want to hear. As a whiskey drinker or as somebody in the industry, we probably over enhance that and say, this is what the guys want to hear. This is what I should be smelling. Whereas they have this innocence of, oh, that smells like, and that smells like that. This reminds me of something. And it's quite refreshing. It's quite cool to do. Yes. So I'm going to start training Killian to do my whiskey tasting notes. I'll give him some time. I'll wait until he's about 8 or something.
Well, I hope he gets credit for it as well. I mean, we might know if it changes from you talking about kind of like poached pears and sort of, I don't know, tobacco smoke to Haribo, like Haribo dinosaurs and beers. But I think Killian's on this one. It's a good point. You're on it. So is that Glendronach?
Yeah.
Because that's got a ghost story too.
We're going to talk about the Spanish lady. And we were lucky enough to have Rachel in the shop 3 weekends ago.
I saw that.
And she said something to me that made me think, holy shit. I mean, pretty much everything Rachel says to me makes me think, holy shit. She's a wonderful person. But we're talking about the new brand, obviously. We don't have it in the shop, it's in our next delivery. And she was asking what I thought of it. And I said, well, I like to reserve judgment until I see it in the flesh. So I love the advert with the dancing and the kind of crossover with the spade. And she's like, oh, did you know that that's the Spanish lady?
Do you remember me saying this on a Blether once? The story about the Spanish lady and the cat?
I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
And everybody's like, I've never heard that story before. I was like, let's see if Jeremy's in chat. He must have heard it. He's like, no, I've not heard that one. I'm like, I've definitely heard this somewhere before.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So she told us about the Spanish lady. Again, I know you'd already done it, but she told us. And
She probably told it in a nicer way, like a
she
more,
was
better storytelling voice than I do.
with absolutely no disrespect meant to yourself, but she was very enthralling when she told us the story.
I could imagine. I could imagine.
So yeah, but that brand, and we're talking about Kubokan, as anyone else kind of had a brand around a ghost, and that's pretty close, surely. I don't think that's by accident. I think they've made this lady the Spanish lady of the ghost back in the 70s. So I was doing a bit of research on it, and I knew the story from Rachel and what you told us, but there's two kind of trains of thought in it, and this is going back to the 70s, so there's still people alive today probably who, oh well, I mean, God, that's talking 55 years ago now. So if you're working at a distillery, you'd be 70s.
Yeah.
At the youngest. But yeah, so one of the stories is that they saw this lady running towards Glen House while they were offloading the casks from Spain, all the also casks from Spain. And this lady was dressed, she was small, very dark hair, and her red and black. Is that a mantilla they call it?
With the veil, with the black veil, yeah.
But the other story is that she was found in the barrel. They found, so the guys who seen her running away later on found the body in a barrel. So this was the ghost running. But I think the actual story is that she ran in and then found a tunnel between Glen House and Glendronach House, and found peace hiding in the tunnels of the distillery, and would, visit guys, men staying in one of the houses.
Just men.
After they'd had a few drams, the ghost would visit them.
So after a few drams at Glendronach, these drunk men were visited by a beautiful senorita. And they're like, sounds like they're winning.
Sounds like a good, she's a nice ghost. She's a friendly ghost. So here's to the Spanish lady.
Here's the Spanish lady, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a very cool story too, actually. I like that. And it's a beautiful tie-in for Glendronach, because obviously they're all about the sherry casks. So
I mean, the marketing team must have had a dream when they heard that true life ghost story.
Right? I love stuff like this, though. I absolutely love when people take a story and manage to marry it into like what they do. It's like the whole the Snow Phoenix. It was Glenfiddich.
Glenfiddich, yeah.
I absolutely love that. Like, if I'd had that idea of rising from the snowy ashes, it's very, very clever. And I'd imagine Rachel would do that story justice. That's pretty cool, to be honest. I'm massively distracted by David Muir, who has just dropped a massive, I did not know he was a former Undertaker. This is massive news. I did not know this.
He's got the personality of a former Undertaker. Sorry, David. Love you.
That's a creepy story. So David's saying that as a former Undertaker, I was asked to take a priest along to bless a house for the owners. Strange things were happening frequently. Once we'd finished, all spirits were removed from the property. Some nice drams we had. Wait, are you actually taking this? Or you just made a real story sound like a joke? Are you actually a former Undertaker? Or have you just given us an elaborate story?
He went and nicked all the whiskies out of the house and called us.
You are such a twat.
Oh, you've got a raging David. She's actually frozen. Even her internet's annoyed at you now. But I do think that is the first time the T word has been said on the Blether. So congratulations on that one, David. So for those watching on YouTube, we also go live on Facebook. So David is on Facebook. So if you haven't seen that comments coming up, I apologize for that. While Cat's reconnecting, let's have a look back at some conversation we've had. Petehead, Frank, you're on the Glen Scotia 10-year-old travel retail. Let me know how that is. I've seen it and I've seen people talking about it, but I've never had the pleasure of trying it myself. What else have we got? I wonder how those episodes would be received today. Is that, what are we talking about? Oh, Dominic, the early series could be quick. Sorry, guys, I'm just having a wee chat about. Oh, Cat's back. Hello. We thought David had annoyed you that much that you just decided to go.
So disgusted with that comment that I left.
I mean, I was just saying to the guys while you were frozen. I think that's the first time the T word has been mentioned on the Blether.
Maybe. I'm really bad for just dropping the old swear bomb now and again. It's terrible, isn't it? If any bad words been mentioned, it's probably been me that's done it. It's very naughty. I should refrain from vulgar language. We're past the watershed, so it's fine.
Are we? I mean, I don't think the Blether has a watershed, to be honest.
Probably not, to be honest. I wonder where that comes up as not predicted text. What's it called? Like the
subtitles.
Subtitles. I wonder what it puts. I'll not say it again. We've got double Dominic on tonight as well. We've got his Facebook persona and we've got his YouTube persona too. So, did we get any more interesting stories?
Once from Glen Scotia. Sorry.
Did we get any more ghost stories while I was away? I was only away for about 2 minutes, but
I was going to say you're away for like how long?
Fell into like a time.
We always mention whenever we talk about castles and things like that. There's always a white lady, a green lady. But Glenmorangie has its white lady. Do you know about the white lady of Glenmorangie?
I don't know this one. No.
Well, if my laptop hadn't died, I would tell you all about it.
Are we doing a quick Google?
Quick. Apparently, there was a whiskey came out called the White Lady. I know that much, which is named after the ghost. I wish my memory was better than it is.
I know. I have to write everything down, or I do just forget it as well. And people tell me.
Does anyone at home know the story of the White Lady of Glenmorangie?
We do a quick Google.
I know more about the byway. Have you heard of Byway Macalaga?
No.
Byway Macalaga. He's probably the first story you hear when you go to Glen Rothes or Glen Grant as well, distillery. So he was rescued. He was a African orphan and rescued by Major Grant and taken back. And again, this was not recent, but certainly he's played football for Rothes Football Club. He was a goalkeeper. And when he grew up, he worked in the stills. He kind of grew up at the distillery at Glen Grant. But when they built Glen Rothes distillery, the ley lines went through one of the local cemeteries. So if you know where Glen Rothes is, and Rothes is right next to the cemetery, when they built it, there was pipework went through. And apparently Byway was a little bit upset by this. So he was certainly the first black footballer in Highland League football. He was a goalkeeper, but he was apparently sneaking in as a ghost. So he died in 1972. So 1972, 1973, something like that. So he was sneaking into Glen Rothes when they put 2 new stills in and was disrupting the distillery. One of the workers, I can't remember who the worker was, but they went over to the graveyard because they thought they knew what was going on and was seen chatting to a grave and basically saying, "Yeah, we think we know what's going on here." But it turns out that what Byway was doing was fixing or trying to sort the issue. So he found out what the issue was from the ghost, went and fixed it, and after that, they never seen the ghost again. And the graveyard he was sitting at, what the gravestone he was sitting at was Byway Macalaga's gravestone.
Okay. That's
So
pretty.
the ghost was trying to help, but
Yeah, that's very helpful. It's nice to have a ghost with good intentions.
so I know when my first ever professional whiskey tasting I attended as a guest was by Ronnie Cox, and he started that. It was so Ronnie was obviously Cutty Sark and Glenrothes was his two big brands, and he always started it with a toast to the ghost, and that
That's cool.
was the Byway Macalaga. So that's a cool kind of fun wee story.
That is.
On
I think as Dominic's got the White Lady story. I've just found it here.
yeah,
So apparently she alleged. Well, I read this as she allegedly removed wallpaper without a tear. I was like, well, why would she be crying? But it's without a tear, which I think ties in with Dominic's comment that she had DIY skills or something. I haven't found the full story, so I don't know exactly. It's just one of these articles that gives you little snippets of each ghost story, but
yeah. I think she went in and she just removed whole like the entire interior decoration of the distillery.
she just didn't like it.
Um, yeah, but the confusing thing is, and was it? It's a name I know, and I think was it Graham Unson who went to Glengoyne, I think after Glenmorangie, or Glenmorangie then. No, Tomatin. He went to Tomatin after. I think it was him that was telling the story that I read, and they were saying that if the walls were damp, then they would understand it. But Dominic's actually typed that up. Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's called. Yeah. So for
So
those watching on YouTube, you know this. For those watching on Facebook, Graham Unson, who's the distillery manager at the time, I'm sure he's now at Tomatin. If the walls are damp, it would be relatively or easier to do, and maybe explainable. But the walls were bone dry, so nobody could explain how she could have done that.
taking all the wallpaper off.
But I can't remember who she was or why
Why she was so anti
she's
wallpaper.
there.
That's a weird one, isn't it? I didn't know.
That'd be pretty cool if if you're wanting a bit of DIY done, you want a bit of redecorating, you just
Just
get a
leave.
ghost in to do it.
Just leave everything
Free
sitting
labour.
right. That is quite handy. But you'd want to make sure that they approved of whatever you decided to decorate because
Yeah, you'd be pretty miffed if you. But maybe that's why they released bottling in her honor.
Yeah, just to appease her so that they can.
Yeah, you know what? You
Maybe.
have a wee bottle yourself.
David's given a practical answer to that. I guess if it was lime-based walls, which dry up the paste. So there you go.
Well, David is a decorator.
Well, is he? Is he though?
Yeah.
I mean, are we sure? Is this just another gotcha dried up like the bottles that I drank?
If there's something that David knows, it's decorating.
Decorating, yes.
I'm not saying he's good at it. I'm just saying he knows it.
Just knows it. Dominic just told me something interesting there. Where's it gone? So the Most Haunted did a show at Kilbeggan, which I did not know. Kilbeggan is one of ours.
Yes, that was
right here.
I was going to look more into that, but I thought we had quite a lot going on with Scotch. But yeah, Kilbeggan is, and I think if I read right, if I remember right, that the Kilbeggan is the most or one of the most haunted.
Do you know, this is terrible, but I didn't actually know that. Kilbeggan looks beautiful. I'd love to go, and I know it's been on TV a few times because it was in it was
almost haunted.
Well, yes, it was almost haunted, and it was on there was like I don't know, it was called like a BBC drama. I think it was called The Tourist or something, and it was filmed there too. So I think it's been, because it's very, very cool. It's like a complete museum inside part of the older buildings, but I did not know it had a ghost or was the most haunted one. So I'm going to look into that. That's very cool. I'm just going to put that on my list there too.
I mean, if they got lots of ghosts, surely Glengarry could borrow one of them.
I mean, I don't know if we need one, to be fair. I mean, we've got floor malting and direct firing. I'm not sure we need a ghost as well. I mean, you can't have everything. Let some of the other places have some fun, for goodness sake.
Let them make up stuff. We'll get the real stuff here.
Exactly. Put that in my little ghost story list there so I can look that one up. Glengarry needs Elvis.
A ghostly monk has been seen in a black robe pacing through the courtyard, was once adjacent to his Cistercian monastery until the monks were forced out in the 16th century. But this monk, Matthew Magnuson, was said to have remained, watching his business crumble and rise alongside his executed son, John.
Oh.
Okay, we'll just throw in the word executed son there and make as if it's nothing. Both have been seen inside the walls of the distillery. In fact, most haunted regular Derek Acora visited Kilbeggan Distillery and referred to Magnus Sr. as Matthias, a little-known family name for Matthew. He then stated that John told him he would never be at rest following his untimely execution. There you go.
That's interesting.
So the numerous accounts include banging doors and squeaking floorboards. It sounds like the Spanish ladies back. Otherworldly whispers engulfing empty rooms and silent machines in the dead of night are heard again and again. More recently, the team of Travel Channel's Destination Fear. Wow, that sounds like a cool channel. I bet they're ripping up tonight. They visited Kilbeggan Distillery as a part of the Ireland-based season 3 finale.
That's very cool. Well.
Oh, and then they've got to put the old tagline at the end. One thing for sure, if you visit the Kilbeggan Distillery Visitor Centre, you're guaranteed to encounter a spirit in one form or another.
It would be something like that.
They can't pass it back.
Well, that's quite cool. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more. I'd love to go and see Kilbeggan. It looks absolutely beautiful. Good whiskey too. Quite like the little bottle of Kilbeggan there. But yeah, very interesting. Did not know that. I'd imagine that quite a few Irish distilleries are haunted. You would have thought there would be something connected to Linda's Abbey with all the history roundabouts.
It goes back a fair bit, doesn't it?
Like monasteries and like religious places quite often have sort of like hauntings and stuff, don't they? So you think there may be the odd monk wafting about there, but
floating around, making his mead.
But yeah, I haven't heard any ghost stories there.
But they may be a bit like Glengarry, where they're like, well, we're the home of whiskey, so we don't need a ghost. We're fine. We've got enough to go on.
We've got all the other stuff to go on. No, it's been some good ghost stories actually.
There's a good ghost story, and I'm talking to you now as somebody who, for a distillery, does. I know you're not part of the marketing team, but you do like the tour wording and stuff. Do you think that does it help bring people in? Is it just fun to tell? Is there a kind of a good marketing pitch to do that?
I think, because we are all looking for that one thing that makes us different from our neighbors. I mean, of course we're different, because the products are all different. But I think until people have been on a tour and understood that, you sometimes just need that very obvious difference. Like we're the one with the ghost, we're the one with the Spanish lady, we're the one with the. So I think it is like a good hook for people, but I don't think you would necessarily draw people in because of that. You may get one or two that's like, oh, I heard there's a ghost here, but unless it was actually part of your brand story or marketing, I don't think
is it maybe more something you go away knowing than you turn up wanting to know?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, did your guy tell you this about the ghost story as well? So
did you hear the crying baby?
I know, I'm still not sure about that crying baby.
Don't do that. You should part of your tour just like have a little monitor with a crying baby hidden somewhere and tell a story. One of the soldiers in the war left suddenly.
This is it as well, though, because it's like it's a cool story, but you actually have to look at the story itself to see if it's a suitable brand marketing type story. The ghost dog, you know, that's a great story and something you can.
Well, that's what I took away from you. What you're talking about, the Fyvie Castle, and no matter about the ghost of that baby, what happened to that baby is still a true story, and that's shocking enough.
It is horrific.
Like
it is absolutely horrific because I mean, there's certainly different ghost stories or ghost connected stories you definitely couldn't use if in tours, and because it's just not.
I don't think that would look good in a bottle, would it?
No, the baby in the walls. It's definitely not one you'd go with, to be honest.
Yeah.
But you know, I think if you actually looked into it, most distilleries would have some sort of ghost story. It's just that some of them are more easier to kind of easier to develop into a sort of brand story than other ones, to be honest.
So I guess the guys at Glen Scotia never really brand the story there, because that's quite a tragic and sad story.
It is, exactly.
But then you look at something like Glenmorangie or Cabochon, and it's quite quirky. Nobody was hurt during that story. I mean, obviously somebody has to die and become a ghost, but it's not a tragedy story. It's just a.
It is, one of these kind of sort of, like you said at the start, it's like, you know, growing arms and legs that's been passed down over the years and then developed into somebody, a ghost taking people's wallpaper off. Rick's back.
Hey, Rick, you're back in San Francisco.
We haven't seen you in ages. Happy Halloween. He's been off touring Scotland and stuff, hasn't he?
He has. And crazily enough, that's why he has been watching us, is because he's in our timeline and he's getting pissed in pubs and stuff like that.
At appropriate times of day instead of
crazy stuff
in the morning.
He's like, I can't join you. It's 8:00 and I'm in the pub.
Yeah, you've given Scotland a right good old seeing to. It feels like you've been away for ages, Rick.
Hopefully, if you had a good time, you'll come back soon. But great to see you on the Blether again. And good morning, as Frank says. Good morning to you. Let us know what's in your glass.
I bet you came back with quite a haul as well. Although you're not allowed to take, I guess you're not allowed to take a lot home unless you do it sort of, unless you do it sneakily.
Those are the words of the squeamish. Not allowed.
And Dominic's still working his way through his Cad and Heads kit by looks of things. Dram number 7. Teaso, I'm not keeping up.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of taking Rick up to Glendronach and then up to where they were staying. They were staying at the Craigellachie Lodge. And we went past Glendronach. We didn't do a tour, but they went to see the bar. They had a few drams. And I love Rick's wife was sitting and we had the drams out and she was like, so this one looks beautiful. I made Rick just laugh. What is the difference between that one in the middle and the other two when you're looking at it that makes this one look really pretty? It looks really pretty. Was what she said. And I was like, and you know, my first thought is, oh, that's cute. But she's quite a good whiskey drinker as well. She's it's not like she was new to the whole whiskey drinking. That's why I was driving. It's because they both like to have a wee dram. But yeah, I just loved it. So this one looks really pretty.
Looks really pretty.
It looks really pretty. I think if I remember right, it was the port cast. Maybe it was that little pink blush to it that made it stand out.
That'll be it.
Yeah. They were whining and dining with Pip Hills and everything. It's crazy tour.
That's mad. Well, Rick, if you've got a connection, get him on the Blether. It's the place he needs to be.
Yeah, because I did. I said, is that so? He's because I think he's about 83 now.
Gosh,
Pip, but mobile enough. You know, he's very active in his community, and technically. Technology aware, so he's good at the old tech stuff. So I'm hoping that we can get in touch. Rick was invited round to his house for white wine and lemonade
in the same glass, or like as a
yeah.
Little spritzer. That's
cool. Spritzer. It was the cheap white wine though. It wasn't the expensive stuff.
Like the one in the box with the tap on it.
I'm not sure if we go that cheap.
Do you still get those? You must do, surely.
Yeah. You go to the supermarket, you still get it.
Box of
I'm not sure
wine.
if it's something that would ever catch on with whiskey. Do you think it would?
I don't think so. They've tried a couple of weird, quirky things, haven't they? They had like was it like the whiskey kind of like capsules that you would.
Oh, the Glenlivet cap. Yeah.
Glenlivet, that's right. I knew it was a big name that didn't, but I don't think
They were
anybody's.
for festivals or something, wasn't it? That you could.
Yeah,
It was weird and wonderful about it.
and then a couple of like the whiskey subscription club things. You get whiskey in pouches, don't you? They send it through the post, like a sort of
Whiskey
little.
me. Yeah, it's and I quite like the idea of it, although I I don't like the romance of it, where whiskey tastes better out of a glass bottle kind of thing. But it's the experience of cracking a cork and pouring. But I think in terms of posting and packaging and this kind of stuff, yeah, it's quite a funky little thing. So the Tetra Pak cartons they have in India.
Yeah, well, Diageo are doing the same with Johnny Walker, aren't they, in Edinburgh at their.
Yeah.
And you can get Johnny Walker in a cardboard carton.
And when the deposit return scheme was kind of being rolled out, I know a lot of companies were looking at that kind of Tetra Paks and biodegradable paper and holding their whiskey in or gin or rum or vodka, whatever it was, as a marketing, as probably not as a mainstay, but as kind of refillable packs, and kind of Rock Rose do it, where you buy the bottle and people love the bottle of Rock Rose.
Mm-hmm.
It's non-recyclable, so they don't want to throw it away, but you can buy refillable pouches. So that kind of thing was properly looked at. But yeah, I'm not sure about whiskey in a box, a bag in a box. Whiskey would have quite the same appeal to it.
I think if it's like a single malt that you're keeping for a long time, obviously you're not going to be able to do that because it's just going to degrade and you're going to have just a puddle on your shelf. But I guess, if it's just a bar whiskey.
Yeah, something like there's a point for the on-trade, for the pub trade, maybe a malt of the month or a whiskey of the month could be just quick.
Yeah.
Scoop out of a bag.
Or it's like a refill station at distilleries. You just rock up your bottle and put it underneath the tap.
That's what's in those casks anyway, isn't it? It's just a big bag full of whiskey.
Well, that's it. Like most distilleries do your bottle your own. It's just like a little plastic IBC inside that they just fill up with literally the bucket every morning. Yeah. So, we don't do that at Glengarry. I'm just saying we do straight from the
Way to kill the romance, cat.
Sorry, nobody thought that the barrel with the tap on it is actually really out of the warehouse, surely. But yeah, that's pretty much what goes on there.
Yeah, there are some distilleries that let you take straight from the cask, though, aren't there?
Like Glengarry, for example, straight out of the cask.
Yeah. Yeah, warts and all.
Well, no, there's no warts. We don't have any warts in our casks. That's quite a cool tasting pack. If you just did a little ghost related, I was just thinking about you with your different drams there, and each one being related to a distillery. Imagine if you did if one of the sort of Cadden Heads or indie bottlers did like a wee Halloween special with all your ghost related whiskies. That'd be quite cool.
With the stories, with little cards down here, the story of the ghost.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be quite good for trick or treating.
I'm going to highlight this for about September next year to ping up and remind me.
They do a little tasting pack. I'll remind you.
The good thing is nobody can do that till next year because it's past now. Nobody can steal that idea until next year.
That's true. Actually, you've got enough time to get some. Well, obviously, when the Blether goes, but the branding takes off and we become our own sort of entity, you could do like a Blether independent bottling release of ghost related whiskies. That'd be quite cool.
That would be cool.
Go big or go home.
The crowds would flock.
They would. I can envision it now. knocking down the shop door. Janice to be there with a large stick. Get back, I tell you, get back. Do you know what? We've actually got time to train owls to deliver them to people. Harry Potter style. Did you appreciate my Janice impression? Janice, if you're watching.
It's just the mental image of her with a broomstick batting people away from the door.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Get back you. She would.
It's like Springbank Day all over again.
Oh God, I know. See, the first time that I started working with you guys, and everybody's like, "Yeah, so Springbank's getting released." Right, so just brace yourself. Never seen the like. Oh my God, people would like queuing at the door and phoning it like it's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's
It's
crazy.
the phone that gets you, isn't it? It absolutely
It
is.
just never stops.
I don't know what I'm going to have now because I've kind of had all my ghosty ones.
Oh, so Dominic's just well and truly pissed on my parade. I'm a bit sweaty tonight. It's like last year, the Spirit Embassy, who are my neighbours, obviously, did a tasting pack from distilleries of ghost stories. So,
Oh,
well, they pissed on my parade, not you, Dominic. You just brought me down to earth with a bump there. But yeah, it's not done by us first then.
well, you don't have to be first to be best.
That's very true. But do you know what else we could do? You could do a distillery animal related one. So you had the distilleries with the cats, the famous cats, and then the distilleries with the famous dogs. I don't just mean me, I mean actual cats, like real cats. So you could have like Glenturret and Lindors and Ardmore. I'm up to 3.
Klein leash.
Clynelish, it's like based around a cat.
Yeah.
That's 4. Oh, there's definitely another one. I said Glenturret, didn't I? Yeah,
I mean, you could have 2 Glenturrets, I suppose.
Okay, he's a really famous cat. Towser, isn't it? Well, Lindors could have 2 because they've got 2 cats.
The Glenturret was the mouse catcher, and they like caught more mice than any other cat.
Allegedly, yeah.
Was it in the Guinness Book of Records or something? Is it?
I think so, but I don't know how they quantified that. I mean, were they like, were they? I don't know, like to have a big pile of dead mice that they just counted one day. Like, geez, that's a big pile. I want to know more about how they quantified that before, we give it.
It was maybe within. They maybe said, phoned up Guinness and said, "Look, we've got this cat that catches more mice than anyone else." Guinness would say, "Well, there's not actually a record for that, so we'll give you a week. We'll come and monitor the cat's abilities for that week, and it's maybe like most mice caught in that week."
That could be it, actually. We should probably find out more about it. We'll put that on my list.
Oh, it's a full year. Tim Hookstra's they extrapolated it for a full year.
Wow. I'm also appreciating the use of the word extrapolated it. That's an awesome word to be rolling out at 9 o'clock at night.
Well, that feels like it should be on a bottle of whiskey.
That would be the name of the release once we get the cat.
This has been extrapolated for 3 full years before release.
Yeah, I love that. Well, there we go. So we can do a cat-themed release. We can do a ghost story-themed release. That's 2 at least. Like, we're off to a good start.
Do you think there was other cats doing the same thing in the same year, and that's why they had to check?
So do you think it was a really good year for cats eating mice, and they're like, "Wow"?
Well, if it hadn't been done before, if it was a first off, why did they have to do it for?
I don't. Well, yeah.
Why would they have to do it for a full year? You know what I mean? It's like, why did this take? We're gonna have to check this for a year. Make sure it's not just. Oh, I suppose seasonal. Mice are seasonal, aren't they?
Mice are for life, Mike.
But they.
I think like mice are like all the time, but you see them more in your house at Hairston.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I didn't think they're not like dandelions or something like that.
Here comes the great mouse migration. They're heading in from Africa.
Look at them riding the geese back home.
Oh my God, I love that idea. Yeah, no, I don't know why I had to do it over. I've got this brilliant image in my head of just these little wee mice on the geese, just like, yeah, dropping from the sky.
Flocking to. So that's a story for Glengoyne. Surely they need to get a cat because all the geese flock to Glengoyne, don't they?
That's true, actually. Anyway, in answer to your actual question, I don't know why they had to count it over a year, and I don't know what started off why they decided to see if he was a record breaker or not. He must have just killed a lot of bloody mice.
Yeah.
But I want to compare that to like another average cat to see how much mice they're killing, to be honest. I mean, I don't know. God only knows. It's interesting though. Well, as interesting as this chat's getting, because it's just got really wrong.
We don't need guests to digress, do we?
No, definitely not.
We've had some Arbeck stories, haven't we?
We have. We did the Connie Vrechen.
That's Lindros. What have I got here? I could join you in a seaweed and Ames. You've got this guy, don't you?
I do have that one sitting open, yeah. It's lovely. Do you know, so this is my second bottle of it, and not because I drank it all, because me being me, decided I want to go and get a nice picture of it somewhere, because that's what I do. Before I drink anything, get my kids in the car, I'm like, come on guys, let's drive my whiskey around the place. I put it in my rucksack, bent down to pick something up. It fell straight out the top of my rucksack, over the top of my head, and smashed on the floor. So I lost my first bottle of it. I know, I was gutted. And my house stank of peated whiskey for ages afterwards. But the worst things for it to smell of. But so yeah, I was quite disappointed. So I ended up getting myself another bottle of it. But it's lovely. It's such a, I don't know, it's just like it's just a big dram, isn't it? There's just a lot going on in there.
And actually, before I have that, and I'm thinking back to something Dominic mentioned about it was Elixir Spirits who launched a range, and I think I forwarded it on to you because I thought you would be quite interested. And there was an Ardmore in the range.
Is that the Macbeth series? There was a Glengarry in the range, and an Ardmore.
Yeah. So what I'm going to have is this guy before I hit that peat monster of the seaweed. So I don't know if you've seen this one before, haven't you?
I've got this one. I bought it for myself for my birthday. So
this is the Macbeth Stone.
Oh, it is. That's right.
So, so bottled in Avoyne, which is very close to Lunfannon, which is where King Macbeth had the Battle of Lunfannon, and I think he was killed there, wasn't he? The Battle of Lunfannon. So he's going to have a ghost kicking about somewhere, surely. I know it's not a whiskey-related ghost, but there's a lot of mythology about. So that's going to be my next dram. So this is I did a review just not long ago, so that's why it's up here. It's a cracker. It's bottled by a local lad, Phil Fraser, who bought the cask. He's been on the Blether, yeah. So if you haven't, if you don't know his story, look it up.
An interesting Blether, wasn't it? He went into a lot of maybe like a couple months ago now, but yeah, he went into a lot of detail just about like the sort of highs and lows of the whole process. He was very honest about it. So if you are interested, if you've got a cask and you're wondering what to do with it and like where to start and stuff, he provided a lot of detail.
100%.
It was really. This is something I'm seeing more and more of as well. I don't know if you get asked it a lot, but so many people who own casks, who maybe don't know what the next stage are. I know I've got a cask, but I don't know what to do with it, or I don't know where it is, or it seems to be like there's a lot of information out there telling people how to buy a cask, but not any information about, okay, so now you bought it, what happens next? How long are you keeping it for? Where is it stored? What are you doing with it? Are you reselling it? I don't know. I feel like there's just been a lot of people asking lately.
And I guess the pitfall of that is people see or are drawn in by money signs and thinking this is an easy investment, buy a cask and it's going to increase exponentially and just be worth millions or hundreds of thousands. And but no. And sadly, a lot of people had to be victims of that belief for it to really kind of come round. And I'm glad to see that Cask's investment is slowing, although the Facebook ads aren't, unfortunately. But people are more aware of it, and people are kind of, and like I say, unfortunately, it's a case of, for a lot of people, is once bitten, twice shy, but they tell the story and it reaches other people. And yeah, it's like nobody tells you the end game or what it involves and what you can and can't do with that cask. And even, the amount of people we met who bought a cask and said, I'm going to give it to my son when he turns 18 or my daughter when they turn 18 and they're going to keep it. And it's just an investment. And you're like, well, what size of cask is it? And it's a hoggy. So you know how much you're going to lose in your lifetime, let alone for that. They're what, one now, and you've bought in that 18 years, you've lost, a fair scalp. And, are they going to want to be handed a cask that if they want to do something with it, they're going to have to pay X amount of £1,000 in duty to do anything with it? It's you never hear that stories.
You don't. I feel like there should be more information out there. I mean, it's due diligence as well. If you're investing in something, if you're investing in property, if you're investing whatever, you're going to do your research, or you're handing over a lot of money. Yeah. It just seems to be that maybe it was just a lot of people jumped into it very, very quickly. And now, as you said,
and it was, but it hiked the prices up. And unfortunately, the guys who suffered for it are the guys who are drinking it, because they're having to pay the price, or they're going to have to absorb the price, because the independent bottlers who are bottling these casks are competing against guys in investment. So they're having to pay more to get their hands in a cask that they think is worth bottling and charge it. And, guys who are watching at home and guys who drink whiskey at home are the ones who are having to pay for it. Thankfully, it's coming down. We are seeing a small decline, because it's not as great as what we would like, but you see that, the difference is that cost price, fuel price, wages, rates, everything else is going up. So although the cost of the cask is coming down, the production, so it's probably what we're seeing is older casks are easier to buy than younger casks, because younger casks are more expensive to make.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, I guess. I know I quite often notice as well that people who own casks, even if it's conversational, like, oh yeah, I've got a cask of such and such, like, oh, that's really cool, like, what kind of cask is it, or like, how old is it, or how long are you keeping it for? They don't even know what they've got. They're like, I'm like, oh, that's really cool, like, what sort of wood's it in? Oh, I don't know, it's just in a oak barrel. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. How big is it? Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Where is it? Oh, I don't know.
I think I'd want.
It's companies preying on the naivety of the punter.
It is, and a lot of it is these brokers as well, because a lot of people think because they've bought it from a broker, they think it's come straight from a distillery. These brokers might have bought it from another broker. They might have bought it from somebody else who'd owned it. Like, it's trying to explain that process. No, I'm sorry, we haven't literally rolled it out of the warehouse and handed it over.
Yeah. Have you ever had somebody turn up saying, "Can I see my cask? Because I own a Glengarry"?
Yeah, no, I don't know if we've had so much. Well, we've had people who've come in and said, "Oh, by the way, I own one," but we get a lot of email inquiries about coming to view casks, and you're like, I don't even know if you've bought it from us. You're like, I don't know. I really don't know anything about it. I don't know. But yeah, I feel bad for people, because I just feel like maybe they're not being given enough information. But the flip side of that, like I was saying, is due diligence as well. If you are, just do your.
Dominic's put in a great point there. He's saying it's the same light as owning a racehorse. If you can afford to lose it, it's great fun.
Yeah. I know.
Dave Ferguson's in the house. Hello, Dave. How are you? Good evening. He's going to catch up later because he was on Family Matters tonight. I hope they were all positive.
Yeah, all you've done is miss a couple of ghost stories. And yeah, that's a bit. And mice flying on geese. So yeah. That's probably the biggest revelation. Biggest revelation of the night.
Did you know that mice migrate?
But yeah, there's been some good ghost stories, but it looks like we've all read the same articles as well. So he's got another Glengarry. I'll have to leave my other Glengarry to another week. I saw that you bottle killed the Batiki one the other night, which I've always wanted to get a bottle of because, of course, it's got the greenhouse photo, artwork on the front of it. So, and of course, he's passed
I
away
guess
now.
it's too soon to have a. It's we can have a raise a glass. Actually, I wanted to do it last week, but we got so involved. Raise a glass to Jim McCall.
To Jim McCall, yeah, the late great Jim McCall.
To Jim.
Here's to Jim. I haven't actually got a glass looked out. I took the bottle and I didn't actually get a glass, so it's just
Take it from the bottle.
I could just.
Yeah, sad to hear. So you want to tell the story of Jim McCall because there'll be a lot of guys at home don't know who he is.
Yeah, so Jim McCall was a sort of Scottish celebrity. He was very famous for a little bit like Monty Don. So he was the Scottish equivalent of an Alan Titchmarsh and a Monty Don. So he was a gardener. So he was on a Scottish gardening program called the Beech Grove Garden, which was filmed in Aberdeen. So in the late 60s, early 70s, Glengarry switched from coal into indirect firing with steam from gas as our energy source. So back then we were producing too much heat energy, so they decided to pump that heat energy and CO2 from fermentation into acres of greenhouses that they built at Glengarry. And it was overseen and sort of managed by Jim McCall, who came to work for Morrison Bramore Distillers. So Glengarry became very famous for growing tomatoes and aubergines and sort of exotic salad vegetables and hothouse plants, but became most famous for these tomatoes. So because it was very, very hot and because they were pumping in the CO2, these tomatoes were like massive and like proper, like really good, like sort of Mediterranean style tomatoes being grown in the arse end of Old Meldrum in the middle of Aberdeenshire, which is absolutely crazy. But it was like the very first example of, or one of the very first examples of distilleries kind of becoming sustainable. But this is way back in the 70s where people didn't even wear seatbelts. So people were not thinking about sustainability. But it's this lovely sort of tie in with what Glengarry is doing now because we've gone back to direct firing, obviously linking our distillation to a heat recovery system. So it's this really cool duality between the sort of first example of sustainability and then us going back to sustainability. And the lovely part about that was Jim McCall bought land from the distillery and built a house down at the bottom of the warehouses. So he was always just a sort of figure in the village. He used to come into the distillery at Christmas time to buy Christmas gifts. And yeah, sadly, he passed away start of this week. No, last week.
It was last because I remember it was just before the Blether, so it must have been middle of last week.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's sad. But yeah, really interesting to have that connection with him, and it was just such a cool thing to be doing back in the 70s as well. And it's funny because
ahead of his time, really.
It was way ahead of its time, and so many people remember it. You know, they were given like a penny from their parents to go down to the distillery to buy a paper bag full of tomatoes. And I love that people have that memory, that kind of link with the distillery. So very, very cool. He was like the TV granddad. He was
he was like a TV granddad. Yeah,
he was.
He was a legend. I remember. So my mum used to be a cook, and he asked her to cook a meal for him and his guests at his house. So this is when she ran the catering at the local golf club, and I worked for her. So I was waitering. I distributed the dishes to him in his own house, and it was quite cool because there must have been about 25 people, but they're all in different rooms and they all had their own little dining room. So I was like wandering through his room with bowls of soup and prawn cocktail and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Prawn cocktail. That was very cool. Yeah, I think it was 80. What did it say? 80? No, not 88. Would it have been to say he was 88? 83 maybe?
I think it was certainly in his 80s, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, a shame, but good old Jim McCall. And we found a lovely Beech Grove Garden posted a beautiful video of him playing accordion with one of the two alleys that does the Hogmanay music on TV every year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they'd done some sort of TV special in our warehouse at Glengeary, and they're both playing the accordion. So that's what they posted on their socials in tribute to Jim McCall.
Could he be your ghost?
Do you think Jim McCall's going to play accordion? A ghostly Jim McCall's going to play accordion around about me? Maybe. Who knows?
You could say, and some people still smell the tomatoes that he left behind. You can just have a wee spray of tomatoes. And
spray tomato. Maybe a bit too soon for that, but you never know. You never know. Well, we do with you, if you're part of the Legends tour, it's like a paired whiskey and food experience. And the menu is a secret, but part of it does play tribute to the tomatoes that Glengeary used to grow.
Up to Meldrum House. Or is that the secret?
No, that's not the secret, but the menu is the secret. But yeah, we go to Meldrum House and they create a bespoke menu for the Legends, and it all ties in with some of the stories, including the Jim McCall story.
It was phenomenal. I was lucky enough to be on that tour with Annie and Aki Manson.
Yes.
I think he just launched it, or it was like a trial run, or maybe just coincided with Annie being home. But it was a phenomenal tour. It was Fiona Marshall.
That's right. So I do. I was going to say I do remember that bit because I know Fiona got a lot of the information about the town, the history from Aki. He had some fantastic stories because I was always meant to go and have a fly cup with him and just take record of some of his stories. But sadly, COVID got in the way of that happening, and then even more sadly, he passed away before everybody got back to normal after COVID. But
I think it must have been for Fiona. It was probably the most nerve-wracking, but also easiest tours she's ever done because she didn't have to remember anything. As soon as she mentioned something Aki was in, he was, oh well, yes, I'll tell you about that coin, and this is that, and that's that, and you could see she genuinely just loved it. She was like, oh, I need to remember that story.
Yeah.
And I remember going down to the kirk in the graveyard, and he just said, well, if you want to see inside the church, I can for the key is. And he just went the secret spot where the key is and opened up and all. It was absolutely amazing. And Fiona was just like, well, I'm not going to tell you to stop. That's not part of the tour.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
That's
it was such a good experience, and what a privilege to be a part of.
Yeah, he had some great stories. But yeah, sadly, he has passed away, but we've got Sandy as well, Aki's son, who's obviously got some great stories too. It's so important to try and write these things down and preserve it at every distillery, because a lot of it is just oral tales and from past workers and things who.
And I guess that's the beauty now is the beauty and the curse is things will never get lost because it's all recorded online, and you'll never, if you're, God forbid, your distillery office burns down, everything's going to be online anyway and kept in a central station, so you'll never lose it. Whereas back in the 17, 18, 1900s, it was all handwritten, so if something was lost, that was it. That's it.
I know.
You can't recreate that. So which is, Ardmore, we mentioned last week about the teachers' archive is just phenomenal, and I know Diageo and Chivas have, the archives that they've got are crazy, but a lot of it's facts and figures, not stories, and I think that's what we lose a little bit of with time is the stories that people tell.
We do, but you know what? We are now part of our own whiskey archive of stories. The Blether, literally, we are future-proofing some of these stories for next generations. Can you imagine that?
Like it or not, these stories are here to stay.
Oh God! Can you imagine if people are actually using this as some sort of reference and hears us talking about mice migrating over on bloody geese? I was just thinking how important what we're doing just now is I felt really like a sense of pride there. We're securing the future of whiskey knowledge. And I was like, oh, wait, no shit. We've just spoken about absolute bollocks.
Can you imagine? a tour guide in the future at Glengoyne. He's like, oh yes, and the reason we have so many mice is that they come over with the geese. They fly back in,
Over
and they
Frankie.
land in the valley of the geese.
And why do they speak like this at Glengoyne? Why have
I
you
don't
gone on?
know. I don't know. Because I think I said valley. That just put me into very bad Welsh.
Yeah, so maybe part of what we're doing is, historical preservation, and the rest of it's just
Just bullshit.
shite. But it's all good. It's all full circle.
Oh dear. Ian Bruce's comment, yeah, the tractor and telegraph poles are archived forever.
That's true.
We do need to speak more about tractors and telegraph poles. I feel we've lost our way with that because that used to be a weekly occurrence.
It was. I mean, I would talk about tractors more. Do you know what I also thought we should be doing? Like Friends, like every episode was like, the one with the whatever, or like the one with the. We'll need to go back through every Blether and just give it a title of, the one with the flying mice, or the one with the. I don't know what we were speaking about last week. The one with the crisps and whiskey, or the one with the. Just like we can actually find. We can find it. Although, if I'm volunteering to do that, I've got a lot of hours worth of Blethers to get through to.
Yeah, that's purely voluntary, by the way.
I don't think I've got time for that, actually. Well, if anybody who's watching has got time to go back through every Blether and sort of pick out the key points so we can give it a title, that'd be awesome. If you've just got like a spare year.
Spare year. Just sit in my back pocket.
If COVID happens again, I know what I'm doing.
I wonder if there's an influencer looking for some, what do you call it when we try and get you to do work for nothing?
Like like a partnership. We'll get them to do
like students do it. They do
that
you can get students to do a
internship.
work for you. And something like that.
Internship.
Absolutely. If there's anyone at home wanting, we'll throw whiskey at you.
That's a good one. Like, throw the transcripts into AI and let it generate a title.
Oh Jesus!
Imagine what I've come up with.
This is how that Terminator series of movies started. Is we threw the Blether at AI and they just thought, fuck this, these people are not worth living. We're just going to kill them all.
Wipe them out.
Skynet, wasn't it? Skynet. We're not giving Skynet access to our AI, our transcripts.
It'll be the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end. My God.
Well, I think because we stayed on brand pretty much for most of the evening. We managed to get the Halloween chat in, and we've got some good ghost stories. I think we have pretty much.
And did you get any geysers? Did anyone turn up at your door that you've ignored?
No. So no, before I got home, apparently some people turned up, but we had no sweets in. So I've just turned up with sweets and nobody's come. So sweets for the evening. But I was telling Mike off air before we went live that there was just a kid in a giant inflatable chicken outfit walking down the street, which I thought was absolutely fantastic.
It's not even Halloween-esque. That kid's getting swallowed up by the evil spirits on their way back. They're thinking, you want a quick snack before we go back to the other world? Yep, big chicken.
There's a big chicken. I never thought of that as well. You're not really disguising yourself from evil spirits going as a chicken. I've often wondered about these inflatable outfits as well, though. Do you get in it while it's like flaccid and somebody just pumps you up? Like, how do they work? They obviously don't arrive inflated.
They've got a little pump inside them. And it just sucks in the air and
it like self-inflates. Okay, so you don't.
Can you imagine that kid's mom sitting?
Well, because you see like hen parties and stag parties and stuff, and like some of the shapes are quite specific for those events. I thought, I thought like a group of like women are all just like taking turns to like inflate some of these costumes, I thought that's quite a commitment, but maybe that makes more sense. Yeah, I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. An Optimus Prime outfit's very cool. So did you build it, or was it like more of like a sort of onesie type thing? Because I've seen people do it with cardboard boxes and like
Yeah, and the kid sits down and it turns into the lorry. Those are
yes,
amazing.
they are very cool. My kid's gone out, but he's not dressed up, so I think he's just chapping doors asking for stuff, which is a little bit kind of like hoodie over guising, but I'll see what he comes back with.
See what he comes back, you know, he might come back with a new ID or something. You never know.
Like, I'm not saying no to that. Talking of children, I am going to have to head off in a second to go and pick up my eldest from work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to have to scoot. But I did send you a text message, but we've been talking so much nonsense.
All right.
It's fine. I should have told you before we started. But I didn't think we'd end up chatting for this long, but it's always really nice
I
because
know. Normally when it's just the two of us, it's like an hour and a bit and off we go. But it's great to see you guys at home as well, because it's been brilliant chat at home. It's kept us going as well.
That's very good. Oh, Alan's saying that his wife made him a cardboard bumblebee transformer last year. That's very cool.
So this year was a onesie, but last year it was just awesome.
Yeah, that's very clever.
Thanks. Keep in mind there have been very fearsome rabbits. So have you seen the Monty Python movies? Life of Brian. No, well, Life of Brian was the. No, it wasn't. It was all Holy Grail. The Quest for Holy Grail. Have you seen these?
I have, but years ago. But I've definitely seen it.
So that's the when the wood and the witch joke came in.
Okay.
And this time is the fearsome rabbits. So not fearsome chickens, but fearsome rabbits.
Fearsome rabbits. Well, I haven't seen any fearsome rabbits tonight, but yeah, there've been all sorts of little children wandering around. So it's been nice to see everybody out and about. It's nice to see that happening actually, because you'd think that would have like kids get really into computer games and stuff. You think maybe some of that would died off, but it's nice that kids still go out and do that. It's cool.
Yeah, it's one tradition that I think needs to stick around, and I'm going to be all for it next year. I think Gilliam's still a little bit young to do it. Yeah. This year he's 19, but next year he'll be 2.5. So
yeah, you'll have all that.
You'll be a wee neep. Yep. Next year we'll dress him up because next year it'll all be pumpkins. There'll be no neeps next year. It's going to take hold. It'll all be pumpkins, and neeps will be a historical artifact.
Oh, you've got to have a neep. You've got to have a neep.
Kids don't know true labour until they've carved their own neep lantern.
I know. Had the sort of imprint of the teaspoon stuck into your palm of your hand because it takes so long to hollow it, and then your house just smells like.
It's like they used to. When I was a kid, a teaspoon would have lasted half a neep. Now it just bends. They just don't make.
They don't make teaspoons like they used to. No one carves neeps anymore. I know you're right, Alan. I carve a neep, but I haven't done it this year. But yeah, I usually always do a neep. We used to have to. It was a competition at primary school, and you have to take in the best neep, and you were like the best face, so like the best lantern. So, but no, it's too easy now with these bloody American pumpkins. No offense, Rick, but yeah, these cheap excuses. But I'm not going to.
But the other thing about the pumpkins is it's so easy to do that they look so cool because it's so they make it look I guess it's the equivalent that just popped into my head. It's probably terrible. It's like carving stone as opposed to painting a picture.
It's not quite in the analogy, but yeah, I guess people do really cool ones where they kind of peel it, don't they? And it's like all I don't know. They do like really clever kind of like design. That people are very clever with their pumpkins, but it's neep or nothing for me. But I am being a neep because I'm still talking, and I'm going to have to go and get my child now. But
he's probably guising around Meldrum already. It's fine. He's got plenty of sweets.
Been stolen by ghoulies or something.
By the evil ghosts.
Yeah,
okay, a pleasure. Before you go, can we speak about next week's guest?
Well, yeah, no, because next week you've got something on. You're at a tasting next week.
Oh no, I'm at a wedding next week.
Wedding, that's what it is. You've got a wedding next week. So we haven't booked anything because I think Annette maybe thought that I might be helping at something that we guys maybe had been asked to do, but she wasn't sure. So I don't know. I was told not to book this next week anyway. So we haven't got anybody for next week. Next week is a hiatus.
Hiatus. Yeah, we're recovering. And we'll be just in case any of us got stolen tonight by the evil spirits. We
I can
thought
find
better give ourselves a bit of a week off.
exactly. I was going to say I'll tell you who's on the week after, but I've lost where I've put my diary. Oh, hang on 2 seconds.
Oh. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Might see you later on in that other lesser famous
Stop
YouTube chat.
mentioning it.
I know I got in trouble last week for mentioning it, so I won't mention it again.
Stop giving them all the bloody airtime. The week after, so that's the 14th, we have the guys from the Dramathon, you know, the race, Dramathon.
Yeah.
Dramathon.
Awesome.
Yes.
The Speyside event.
Yes, so we've got them coming on to tell us all about it.
Awesome. Oh, that'll be good fun. I know a lot of people who've done it. I know a lot of people who want to do it. I am in the category of people who feel like I want to do it, but it sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, I know. I'm in that group as well, so I thought if I heard more about it, then I'd maybe make that.
If I could drive it, can you drive a Dramathon?
No, I don't think. No. I don't think so. No.
Well, we'll ask them next week. I'm sure they
We could. Yeah, write that one. You write that one down to ask them. Okay. Right, I'm going to scoot everyone.
Awesome.
Nice to see you all, everyone. Catch you
Thank
later.
You, Kat.
Happy
Thank you, everyone at home. And we will see you all next. Oh, it won't be next week. It will be in 2 weeks' time. We will see you all. But don't be strangers. Reach out to us if you're watching retrospectively and ask any questions. We do try and get back to you afterwards. And yeah, we will see you all very soon. I'm away to go and enjoy this, which I uploaded earlier. Night, guys. Have a great Halloween. Hopefully nobody gets stolen by evil spirits. Cheers, guys. Good night.